Great. Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Manage Hospital Clinical Inventory with this groundbreaking new electronic shelf label solution, VueStat. First, a little bit about AIM. AIM is the Industry Association for Automatic Identification and Data Capture Technologies. We serve as a hub for quality resources covering all types of barcode, RFID, and mobile computing information. We also foster new auto ID innovations that stimulate market growth. We encourage you to get involved. If you would like additional information, reach out to us at info@aimglobal.org. First, our AIM antitrust policy. It is the policy of AIM to conduct its operations in strict compliance with the antitrust laws. No AIM activity shall create even the appearance of a violation of the letter or spirit of the antitrust laws. And then a few other housekeeping notes. All registrants are muted upon entering the webinar, but we still want you to participate. To send a question, select the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. We'll get to as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. Also, a recording of the webinar will be available in the coming days to those that have registered. And now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today's presentation. We have Lana Mechanic, the COO and co-founder of VueMed, and Guy Russell, VueMed's Director of New Product Development. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Lana.
Thank you, Bethany. And hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, everybody can see my screen, Bethany? We're good? Excellent, thank you. All right, let's start with why we're talking about this today. So I wanted to share with you guys, those of you who may not be familiar with the healthcare background and healthcare settings when it comes to managing supplies. This shows you some of the compelling need for electronic shelf labels in industry. So today in the healthcare world, you have hundreds of items, thousands of actually individual bins spread across multiple different locations. And most of them you can see here in the screenshot and the pictures managed effectively through various paper labels. So the paper labels are typically showing folks what is this item, what are the priority order levels for this item, and what is the item number and things like that. And as you can imagine, especially in today's supply chain world, and with various back orders and recalls and all kinds of other issues that come up in supply chain, including contract changes and things like that, every time there's any kind of an update to the item, there is this scramble of reprinting, relabeling every one of those items in every one of those locations, right? Which is, as you can imagine, is a pretty difficult task, especially when you consider how many of these items we're talking about, which is thousands and tens of thousands, potentially individual bins across hundreds of locations, even in any given institution. All right, so there is a fantastic opportunity. We had a great opportunity to, having understood this well, to see how we can apply the electronic shelf label technology to solve this issue. Not having to continuously reprint right, paper labels, finding a way to inform the end users, the clinicians, when they walk into the room, what are they looking at? You know, what is this item? What is the status of this item? Knowing how to find something. All of these things, we wanted to see if we can solve that with electronic shelf labels, right? So we developed a VueStat, the electronic shelf label solution that actually allows all of this information to be on an electronic e-ink label. And that label comes in a variety of different sizes and configuration. And it comes with a lot of different options for displaying the information, what kind of information can be displayed, right? And it comes with a couple of other key things. One is the action button, So the end user can actually communicate a signal of a status change or replenishment requirement. And the label also provides this LED light, so it can actually identify itself by blinking, right? So now we have an opportunity to have this information displayed automatically, very, very clearly to the end users when they walk into any given room and approach any given bin where these items are stored. And we have an opportunity to give the end user a sense of agency and interaction with the system by identifying the replenishment need as well. All right. So why is this important? How does this benefit everybody in the organization? Right? And you probably are gleaning from my previous comments on the problem areas, is that we are addressing a whole bunch of different pain points for both the supply chain staff and inventory coordinators inside the healthcare organizations, who no longer have to run around and reprint the labels anytime any information changes about the item. And keep in mind, as I mentioned before, especially in healthcare supply chain, since COVID and post-COVID, there have been significantly more disruptions in the flow of supplies. There's many more back orders. There are many more substitutions that need to be managed. And so every time these issues occur, it is just not feasible for the supply chain staff to be able to be completely on top of it manually like this, through paper labels, if you will, in order to inform the clinical staff that is interacting with these items. So this technology allows us to create this instant communication opportunity to show the status of the item, what's going on in with each of these items in each of the locations, to be able to instantly identify the replenishment needs, because that interaction occurs by sort of a push of a button, to be able to have full visibility of what is going on with their inventory across many different locations for different items. What is the status of replenishment with any given item? Uh, how frequently something is being replenished in one location versus another, and conversely, what might be sitting around and not used or replenished, and therefore perhaps opportunity for consolidation or changing the location, things like that. And then one of the critical factors here is really the empowerment of the clinical staff. The amount of delight we see when clinicians walk into the room and they can clearly see what's on the label, or they can clearly see the status of the item. Oh, I see that's already on order. I don't have to worry about it. Oh, I see it's been recalled and I see the substitution information on the label. I know where to get this item, right? Or being able to walk into the room and say, find me, I'm looking for this, and I've got 3,000 items in this room. Find me the one I'm looking for. And being able for the label to identify itself. That sense of sort of control, agency, and efficiency that this offers to the clinical staff is absolutely invaluable. The other pieces that I want to call the attention to is the opportunity to improve the quality and safety of patient care, right? So the labels can also identify very clearly the expiration date that folks can see exactly on the label, right? And of course, through things like availability of items when needed, because again, the information is transparent, and there's a both trust and operational efficiency around knowing that the items will be there when you need them to, or how to identify or find a substitute if the original is not available, right? A few words around sort of how this technology is set up. And the setup is actually pretty straightforward and pretty simple. It's not unlike, it's kind of like a combination of a Wi-Fi and RFID setup, where there's a gateway that's typically installed in a location that contains multiple labels. It could be several hundred labels. It could be a few thousand labels. that the gateway is receiving a signal from, depending on the configuration of any given room or location, right? And it is using a proprietary communication protocol to communicate between the gateway and the multiple labels in the room, right? And you can see that, as I mentioned before, so the labels allow you to have all different sorts of templates in order to display the needed information, right? These templates are completely customizable to different customers. Generally, what we found very useful is, of course, the things like replenishment status. So you can see different kinds of status information that's available on the label. On the left-hand side here, here's a regular label, everything is fine. On the right-hand side, here is the status indicator of the item being on order, right? And that status is generated by, one of the ways in which it's generated directly from the end user, for instance, is by simply pushing a button, right? Other status indicators that labels will show are things like what may be going on with an item outside of being on order, things like back ordered, things like recalled or discontinued, right? Those are the other common status options and issues that we see encountered in the healthcare supply chain. So having that information in front of the end user and in sort of an instantaneous fashion is incredibly useful. And you can see that these ESLs can go on basically any shelving space or bin. There's multiple different options for making sure that they can go into any available storage area and space. You can see some examples here on the bins and on the shelves. You could see also here that they, as I mentioned before, they come in different sizes. So smaller spaces need to be accommodated because a lot of the storage areas in the healthcare facilities come in tiny little bins, very narrow little spaces because of smaller sort of items that need to be managed. Sometimes it's a very dense environment. So you have all kinds of options in affixing the labels on to the appropriate storage area, right? Whether it's a bin, whether it's a shelf, or different kinds of bins, etc. Right. There is an easy way to install them. Right. There's an easy clip, which we like very much. This tends to work in most surfaces, but there's all kinds of other options as well for if other surfaces need to be involved here. So for example, you can see here's a pretty dense environment here on the left-hand side with a whole bunch of different sizes of bins, for example, are right next to each other, and they all can be accommodated with a label depending on the size, right? And it could also be affixed to a wall if necessary, because there's a bunch of things maybe hanging on the wall, right? You can see on the right-hand side is nicely organized suture bins, right? So again, much easier to see what you have and understand what's going on with each one, right? So all of this information, so how does the information get to the labels, right? So it is communicated through this central portal web-based application. So this portal allows the designated users to be able to manage the information displayed on the labels. Typically, we have an integration with the hospital ERP system to get the item master information flowing into the system, as well as, if possible and available, any sort of status updates. If those status updates about the items live in the ERP system, we would get those as well. At the same time, the information could also be managed directly in the portal, which you can see. So there's this an example dashboard here. So you can see that we are both displaying and analyzing information in multiple different ways. things like, hey, what is the overall status of my items, right? How many may be back ordered, how many recalled or discontinued, for instance, or any other type of status that may be needed. Or what's been my frequency and velocity of my replenishments across all locations or a specific location, and lots of other things like that that are possible to analyze very, very quickly. And of course, the system also monitors the health of the system itself. So any things like what is the battery life of each of the labels we have, and if anything is running low, this would identify that information as well. All right, Guy, anything to add as I'm going to pass the baton to you
No,
to
no,
talk?
you've done pretty good there. Yeah, the dashboard gives us both insight into the health of the physical portion of the system, as well as the inventory that we're keeping track of. Each of these is also, we can drill down to, the all of the information that drives what the graphs that you're seeing there. So we can see a aggregate of any location or all locations, and then we can drill down to each individual item in each individual room. All of that's right at your fingertips here, depending on what dashboard layout you want to see.
Perfect.
Yep.
Let's go into some details here.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So normally we would have an integration with the ERP system, and a lot of this stuff would happen on the back end. You'd have we'd have an automated schedule as to, how we're going to manage our inventory. And so this would be auto-populated by that. This is something that you wouldn't normally not have to deal with, but here you can if you need to. We have we can either edit the products themselves, and that is a global change within the whole system. If you have a particular product and you want to change, something in the definition of it, you would do that here, and it would go out globally. It would go out to every single label in every location that is associated with this product, and the change would be displayed. Instead of printing the tags and then having somebody go out to each location and find each bin in each location, this happens within 1 minute. All of your labels are updated. It generally happens, it starts happening within seconds. But so if you have so normally you would see the discontinued or the back ordered, that type of thing would come out of the ERP system. And, in the middle of the night, we'd see this thing go out. The end user would be able to walk into a room and see that status. If it's a recall situation, you want that out right now. So you hit that recalled button there, and that information goes out system-wide within 1 minute. And everyone knows the labels on those bins turn red, the danger sign, and they know exactly that, hey, this means I'm not supposed to use that. And hopefully we've given a substitute product to use instead. May or may not have access to that information, but and then down below here we can see, where is this label? We have this in this system, we have 100 paired labels for this thing. So we know when we make that change, it's going out to 100 different labels.
Mm-hmm.
On the next slide, we see this is a product in a particular room. We've drilled down to a single room. We've found the product, and we can change the par levels, the expiration date. You can see the expiration date to the right there. That QR code was replaced with an expiration date on that particular label. That's if you have, normally you're not going to have an expiration date on packages of a product in the bins, but say your saline has bags of saline have a expiration, you want to know that. We want to know that, when we get to January 25th, we want to rotate that stock out of there. And possibly, pull up the fresh stuff. You can change the par level here as well. So if you decide that you want to, if we need to have more stock on hand, That can be changed here. When you change it here and you go, you're gonna save that change, you're able to change that. You saw on the earlier slide where there was the on order was a black background. You are able to, if you change the par level from 50 to 100 here, and you know now that you're under par. So you want to order, you want that label to show that it's on order. So you can hit that little button right down there and change it to under par. And when you save it, that label in that room will switch to the black background, and the users will know that it's under par and is on order. That is also when we're tied to the ERP system, that then generates a requisition. So nightly we take an inventory. We say what is in need of being ordered, and we generate a requisition and send it back into your ERP system. So it's automated. The user can either press the button on the label and change it to on order, or you can do it from here and change it on order. This is a fun thing. This is, we allow people to search for an item in a room, and there's a number of ways to do it. We found people using this on day one. We weren't even finished installing the labels in the first room when we used this feature. It was fun. We can look up an order. This is a page that allows you to either search by typing or search by voice. You can actually search by voice and say, show me where the gloves are in this room. You can say flat. You don't need to call up this dialog necessarily, but you can say flash, and all of the labels in that room that are gloves will begin to flash, so that you know exactly where that inventory is. If you pull up that screen and you say, I want this one particular type of glove, we pull up the product, like this is pulled up. This is an airway. But you pull up the product, you can hit flash, and that label immediately flashes. You don't have to guess at where it is anymore. We again, we used this day one. We weren't even finished when somebody came in and was looking and muttered to themselves, and we said, what are you looking for? And she said, well, I'm looking for X, whatever it was. And we said, well, here, let's look it up. Hit flash, the thing started flashing. It was like, wow, thank you so much. She said, the first time I was here, this was a stock room off an emergency department. She said, the first time I was here, I came in to find something, and it was an emergency situation. And she said, I started crying because I couldn't find it. I panicked. This is just amazing. So the other thing we found right away was that people have nicknames. They have a product, they may have a particular kind of product that they know as a certain brand name. They're looking for a package. They're looking for a package of a certain size and a certain color. And the manufacturer got changed. We changed who the manufacturer was that supplied us. And we found out that they had nicknames for these things. So we allow people to search in the search feature as well. We allow people to search by nickname. So it's actually part of the main part of the search. So if they called, medium beige gloves, if they called them Christmas tree, they could literally look for Christmas tree and it would pop up and show them what it was. We found that a lot of times nurses would be travel from one place to another. If a nurse needed to fill in somewhere else, they don't know the layout of the supply room as opposed to the one that they're used to. So they can come in here and search for the nickname that they know, and they can find this product right here as well. So this is a really fun feature. We originally envisioned this to be like a tablet that we put up at each room so that you could literally walk in, say, start listening to me. Let me ask you for this item, and then flash it for me. But we quickly migrated to probably the most usage is to have this on their mobile device. So we have mobile friendly pages of this as well, so that you can use your own phone to call up a thing, flash it. Thank you very much. We're done. So very, very exciting. This is a real fun feature of this.
Yeah, it's been incredibly valuable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Any questions, comments? We left on purpose, left a lot of time for questions and Q&A in general, so we have time to answer them, because I know we went over it at a pretty high level. There's obviously a lot of potential questions that you guys might be interested in, so let's see. Thank you, Bethany. I can't actually see the questions, so if anybody, please call them out. Yes.
All right. And if you have any questions, you can put them in at the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. All right, so one question we have here, great solution. Has there been an ROI performed measuring the effectiveness of time savings compared with cost of paper label?
Actually, our customers are doing kind of in the middle of that as we speak, but in general, what we found with ROI, it's not just the paper labels, although that's certainly a huge component of it for the supply chain staff. It's also in general the time it takes for them to get to the particular location, because a lot of the times they have to manage a whole bunch of locations and they're spread out. So they minimize the amount of travel time to and from places. They minimize the amount of time it takes to even review what needs to be reordered, right? So where they may have spent 2-3 hours in one place before, now they may be spending 30 minutes or less, right? Just to get to possibly do some audits of what has been deemed as needing to reorder. So there are multiple components to that equation. So this is what we've been aiming for with the solution is beyond just replacing a paper label, right? This has really been aimed as helping truly manage and optimize inventory. So optimize inventory that you're carrying and optimize the entire operation of managing the inventory across multiple locations. So yeah, we will be, as this information is put together, we will be talking more about that as we get more specifics from our customers, for sure.
One thing we noticed immediately here was a couple of time savers. One was for the supply chain folks. They no longer had to make a separate trip to the location to see what needed to be ordered, then go back and get it, and then come back again. They already knew ahead of time what needed to be ordered. So it saved them 2 trips going to and from. The other thing that saved a lot of time was clinicians themselves. They come in, they see something is low, and they would have to go back and ask somebody or send an email off or do whatever they needed to do to say, hey, we're running low on this, will you get it? And again, we had immediate feedback on that. Clinician walks into the room and sees that it's on order. They don't have to think about it anymore. It's done. They don't have to go spend any time trying to ask anybody what the status of this is.
Yeah, there's a lot of these sort of hidden cost, and I would call peace of mind is a huge part of this of the value here to the frontline clinical staff. So it's both, right? It's that operational efficiency, it's the time savings, and it's a huge that peace of mind, that sense of control, the sense of agency, sense of trust. My stuff is going to be there when I need to, and I know exactly what the situation is with each of these items. That's really huge for the frontline clinicians.
So we have a question here. Can you update the labels in the room in real time from a scanner, or do you have to go to a computer to update? Can you update mass labels if stocked in different locations? Yes, the mass locations, you update a product, it goes out to all labels in all locations. It could be hundreds or thousands of labels. They will all get updated. The scanner part of it, you noticed we were using QR codes in the on the label themselves that identified the product ID, the hospital specific ID that they use to track that. We had been using barcodes initially, but we found that people want to use their phones. Again, with the mobile solution, QR codes are much easier for a phone to recognize and read. And so, yes, you take your phone up there, you're in one location, you take your phone, you scan it, you pull up that product, and you do the update. We don't want to allow everybody to do that. We want to allow only people with administrative access to be able to do that. So there's layers of permissions in the systems that let people do certain things and not others. Another question I'm seeing is, are we seeing this only products used in healthcare, or is it being used in retail or grocery? Yes and yes. Lowe's uses a technology, ESLs in some of their, we've seen them in the appliance center. I don't know if they're in the entire store, but this started off for the grocery store. You go into a grocery store and you don't realize they have 100,000 SKUs in a typical grocery store. So, so that's where it had its first use, and particularly in Europe, it's been used for a while, and just catching on here in the U.S. now.
All right. And then another question that we had was about Wi-Fi. Does it use Wi-Fi? If there's a bad Wi-Fi connection, does it affect the solution?
It uses the same frequencies as Wi-Fi. It uses you saw the gateway, and it looks an awful lot like a router, a Wi-Fi router. The labels actually have batteries in them, so they it takes very little power for the gateway to query all of the labels. It's querying the labels all the time. We don't want to use Wi-Fi itself because we don't want to encumber the system, the hospital system itself. There's already a lot going on there. We stick to the 2.4 gigahertz range, but we stay away from the main bands that of most Wi-Fi traffic. So we have specific bands we can land on, and we will pick a particular channel to listen to conduct the business between the gateway and the labels themselves. And we can change that. We have a default band that we typically use, but if we have gateways within 20 meters of each other, we want them to be on different channels. So we'll have to spread out where they're communicate, what channels they're communicating on. So any three in any one location, if they're within 20 meters of each other, they don't collide with their queries. But if we find in a hospital that they have particular proprietary systems that occupy a certain bandwidth, we can just adjust it to a different bandwidth. So yes, it's like Wi-Fi, but no, it's not Wi-Fi. It's proprietary to the system.
All right. And then another question that we had, what challenges have you faced implementing the solution?
So that one have several facets to that answer. So I would say, like with any new technology or new process implementation, there's a few aspects to it. One is sort of the organizational workflow process related kinds of things that need to be addressed, change management pieces, right? And then there's the kind of physical installation in any potential sort of physical obstacles or concerns that have to be overcome. So I can speak quickly on sort of the organizational ones, just in terms of tackling this as a project, especially when folks are interested in doing this as an enterprise type solution. And then Guy, if you don't mind tackling some of the physical challenges that we've encountered and had to overcome. So on the organizational front, again, like any other project of this sort, right? There needs to be sort of the top executive approval and oversight, like with any project, to make sure folks are behind us. We've been very fortunate to work with very sort of innovative organizations and innovatively minded organizations who are interested in additional kind of innovative solutions in order to bring great deal of efficiencies to their supply chain operations. So they're very motivated organizations who figured out who are the key constituents that we need to work with in their organizations. to put this in place, right? Which would involve some of the telecom services and network communications, things like that for actual installation. And then working with the clinical executive management team to work through the change management kinds of processes with their clinical staff to say, hey, this is what it's going to look like going forward for you guys. And of course, most of the clinicians are quite delighted, as you've heard, but it's still a change, right? So that needs to be managed. As well as as well as some of the supply chain protocols. For example, some customers may need to change the way in which they're working with their distributors and the times of scheduled deliveries for their items, right? Because they're trying to organize their own resources and processes to try to optimize, how many locations any given staff member is going to be supporting, right? Things like that. So working through all of that is it certainly can be challenging, but it's also an exciting part of the project and change for the better. So. Guy, I'll let you handle the other stuff.
Yeah, the physical part of the installation can be challenging sometimes. Typically, we want to put, in the best case scenario, we have items in bins, and we're able to, you saw the clip that we were able to use to install the label on the front of the bin. That's the most versatile, but it's not, we can't use it everywhere. You have a refrigerator of products. There are labels that can be used inside a refrigerator or a freezer and be read, through to the inside. But typically we see that that label might want to be on the outside. People want that label to be on the outside anyway, so they have visibility, without getting into the unit itself. The clip actually comes in a track, in a long track. So we could put up 4-foot sections of that if we need to, and put up a whole string of these things on the outside of a refrigerator. A lot of times we have products in drawers. Again, the bin is all the way up to the front of the drawer. We don't have room for the people to see the label on the front of it. So we need to attach it to the side of the drawer. Sometimes they're cupboards with shelves. We need to attach them to the front of the shelves. In terms of the gateways, sometimes depending on where our products are located, sometimes the gateway can cover, more than one room, more than one location. If there is a shielded room in between two locations, it can't read through the shielding. So we might have some product inside an X-ray room or an MRI room, but that room will be shielded, and that gateway can only read what's inside that room, and any gateway outside of it cannot pass through it to perhaps a storage location on the other side of that room. So those are kind of the challenges we face in installation, and that's on a case-by-case basis. We figure that out as we go.
And then another question we have is, can you use both VueTrack and VueStat systems in the procedure room? And how can staff scan items that are part of the case?
Yeah, I see that question from Hong. Thank you. So we do have a number of other solutions, obviously, that we've been offering on the market for a while, and VueTrack is our solution for procedural environments for inventory management and individual item tracking. So I would say so VueStat is less about an individual item tracking down to its sort of lot and expiration date, the way that VueTrack is designed to do, and it's more about general replenishment for sort of bin-based items when you're just tracking something for replenishment purposes, and typically at a bin level. So the way in which the two can sort of easily coincide with each other is VueStat is will always serve, at the very minimal, serves as a label, right? As a way of identifying the item and its status. But for certain items, you may not use it for replenishment purposes, right? VueTrack will serve that purpose because you're managing each item on an individual basis, right? So, but if you have in a procedure environment, if you have a combination of these individually tracked items like your ICDs and pacemakers and balloons and stents and all that good stuff, But at the same time, you have a bunch of sort of med surg items that you're managing at a bin level, right? Those med surg items can be managed through VueStat in a full inventory management capacity, indicating replenishment as well as the status and what the item is. So there's definitely ways of making sure you take advantage of both, and when needed.
And then we have another question here asking if there is a case study or a live example of where the solution is deployed.
Yeah, I think we will start putting that together when we are a little further along in some of these projects. So you'll start hearing that information coming out in the coming months. So thank you for that question. Yeah, definitely, we certainly plan to to share that out when we have more information over time. Mm-hmm.
All right, any more questions? All right, I think we can move on to the next slide here. Oh, actually, one question came in right now. Does every pack carry RFID or NFC on every shelf?
Guy, you want to answer that? It's not NFC or RFID.
It is not. It's not either one of those. And the RFID needs to be. RFID has no power unto itself. The label itself. It is powered by the broadcast that the antenna is putting out to return a signal back to the reader to be able to pick that up. This is different. The labels have the little coin-sized batteries in them, so they actually give a little bit of power, so the gateway doesn't have to broadcast so much. NFC is a short range, and this does not use it at all. We could, but we don't find a need to. The information is at your fingertips on your phone anyway, so you don't need to be able to use NFC for it.
I see a question from a follow-up from Hong. Hey, thanks, Hong. Can you explain how the system manages items borrowed from other departments? Does automatically update inventory status across departments? So to answer that question, Hong, for VueStat specifically, each item is managed to its specific location, right? It is associated with a specific location. So it's not so much that you would ever really borrow one from the other. It's much more about how much is in a particular location, and when does that location, that particular bin, need to be replenished, right? And what the general status is of this item in case it changes, if it's recalled or back ordered or something like that. So that's very different from like what, again, VueTrack would do for individual item tracking, where you have a specific box with a specific lot or serial number, right? And you have to be able to track potentially from one department to another, because maybe one department buys it, another department uses it, right? And you need to know both of those pieces of information. In the VueStat case, it's largely sort of bin-based, high volume type of items that you'd be managing in each of the relevant locations, and you really need to know, how much do I need to replenish in that location, right? That's kind of the main purpose.
Yeah. So if you had to go steal from another department, today to get the product that you needed, you would probably have then both of those locations be on order, because we need it in both places now.
Right.
We had to go steal it, so we need this in both.
All right, if there's no more questions, if you want any additional details, you can reach out to our speakers through the information listed on the screen. And if you have any questions for us here at AIM, we have our information on the screen as well. And if you want to go to the next
Yeah, I
slide.
just want to thank Bethany. Thank you for facilitating, and
Yeah.
thank you, AIM, for having us here. And again, as Bethany mentioned, if you guys have any specific questions, we know that we went over this information at a fairly high level, and could be lots of potential details you are interested in. Just to please reach out to us directly.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you, Lana and Guy, for your presentation.
Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time, everyone.
Have a great day, everybody.
Have a great day,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.